so much for being here. I'm Miranda. Julie, who is the usual bright and sunny personality that you see on these calls, is not here tonight. She had some other things going on. So you guys get to spend just a little bit of time with me. Hi, Sheila. While we do the all attendees VIP drawing from last month. So if you've joined us early, we start at 8 o'clock on the dot, but a little bit before that, we hop on here so that we can do that drawing from last month's gathering to see who's going to win it. And I'm going to be really honest, I don't know what last month's drawing was for. So as soon as we find out, I will let you know. And the winner, it'll just be an amazing surprise for you. Julie will reach out to you and let you know what you've won. Hey, Becky just said that she pre-ordered her cookbook. Thank you, Becky. I know Cindy's going to talk a little bit more about the cookbooks, but I want to make sure that I thank you for that purchase. Thank you, Becky. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. Bear with me because not super adept at this, but we're going to get through it. So let me share my screen. And let's see who won last month's VIP drawing. So just one moment. Let's see if it worked. Oh, yay, it worked. So, okay, ladies, let's get ready. We're going to spin and see who won. Okay, let's see. Let's see. We've got Jamie Miller as our winner. Congratulations, Jamie. You will get a email from media@nlhd.org, and she's going to let you know what you've won. This is fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now. So again, we're so happy that you're here. If you're here, drop in the chat where you're from so that we can all connect and say hi. I see Sheila's here and Laura's here. I met both of them in Ohio the month before in June. It's already August. So see, we've got Fentress, Tennessee here. We've got another from New York. That's fantastic. Fort Worth, Texas. Sheila's from New York as well. So we got a couple from New York. That's fantastic. Georgia. You ladies keep popping in that chat and dropping where you're from. We have ladies from across the country join these national virtual gatherings. And it's so exciting to see everybody come together. Even though we can't be together in a local community, it's nice that we have this platform to share knowledge on. So yeah, just fantastic. Another one from Ohio. I saw Priest River, Idaho, which is really cool because I'm only 30 minutes away from Priest River, Idaho. So welcome. Got some more from Georgia. This is fantastic. You ladies are just popping in from all over. If you haven't already, make sure that you go to our social media sites and share this event with folks. They can still register to attend and have a link sent to them right now so that they can hop on if you think that they'd be interested in learning more about our topic tonight. So that's fantastic. I'm so excited to see everybody here. I'm going to go ahead and we're 1 minute early, I know, but I'm going to go ahead and see if Cindy's here. Cindy's going to fill in for Julie with the regular Julie stuff. Neither of us are Julie, so we'll just apologize up front for that right now. But Cindy's going to pop in, and then you guys will see me again at the end for our drawing at the end of the gathering. So ladies, thank you so much. Keep popping where you're at in the comments.
Hello, everybody. And yes, we all said this when we filled in for Julie tonight. We are definitely not Julie. She has the energy at this time of night that I will never have. And so, yep, here we are. But this is what a team does when one person has something they have to take care of, the rest of us step in. So it continues because our biggest focus is you all being here tonight. And I'm telling you, our topic tonight, I am so excited about. I have dabbled in herbal teas for years, grown all the herbs, done all that kind of stuff, and just cannot wait to hear what Michelle has to teach us tonight. But before we get to Michelle, there's a lot of housekeeping stuff that has to be done. And so I'm going to go ahead and get that. Julie was kind enough to send an agenda, and she had us taken care of for sure. So I really appreciate all that she did. But I do want to, do you see Piper on the bed back here? So those of you who don't know, I'm in Montana for a few more months, and then I will be, this is my last year in Montana at the ranch where I've been working for the last 4 years. And I will be headed back to Pennsylvania to the Northeast. So excited. We were in Pennsylvania for the Mother Earth News Show in July. And I met a bunch of ladies that came over for that. It was so much fun, just putting faces with names. Some of them had been at the Ohio event, so it felt like old home week, like to see each other again. It was very fun. But I'm super excited to get back to the Northeast. A lot of friends over there now, and yeah, it's going to be great. So Piper, right now, we've had a busy day here at the ranch. Thus the hat, it's actually raining outside right now and chilly. I was telling somebody our summer will be over this coming weekend because we're dropping back down into the upper 60s. And at night, sorry to say this to those of you who are in the high heat zones around the country, we will be getting into the upper 30s, lower 40s. Great sleeping weather. So, yep, that starts this weekend, and I'm just a little bit excited about that. All right, let's get on with the stuff for NLHG. Our purpose statement, I feel like, I could call on anybody here and you could tell us our purpose statement is to empower women through homesteading. So, yep, super excited about this mission statement that we have, because over the last 12 years, I've seen it over and over and over again. Women who get involved with homesteading, get that knowledge, conquer their fears, and just make it happen. And yeah, there is empowerment in that. And then how do we make this happen? By sharing knowledge, building community, and growing friendships. Such a beautiful triad right there of, as we often say at the in the executive team, is if you build a community, they will come. And we've seen it over and over and over again. June will share with us. Well, I'm going to ask her to share with us. So June, get ready for this. June's going to share with you how many VIP members we have in our organization. And I am shocked at how fast that has grown. So if you don't know what a VIP member is, we call them very invested partners. So it's women who hang on to or fully understand our mission statement and our purpose statement. And they've invested monetarily, but also with their time and their loyalty, and they share about LHG all over the place. And so we have a lot of you out there, and that's why we want to celebrate you and honor you tonight when we do some of these giveaways. So thank you, a special thank you to all our VIPs who are on here this evening. All right, next. So I have my little list here. All right, June, it's your turn to come on. So June's going to share with us about our Atta Girls, one of my favorite parts that we do every month.
Hey there. Welcome, ladies. I am so excited to share our Atta Girls, but first, like Cindy requested, I am going to share with you that we have about 825 very invested partners. Our VIP members are celebrated each time someone joins. We are so excited that you have partnered with us in what we're doing in building community across the country. And also, if you don't have a chapter in your area, you're able to come along with us every month for this national virtual gathering. So we're so excited that you are here, and we are appreciative of all of those VIPs. One of the things we do is we celebrate at our gatherings, at our in-person gatherings, as well as this gathering, Atta Girls, every month. And an Atta Girl is, we just are patting each other on the back and saying Atta Girl for all of your efforts throughout the previous month. It doesn't have to be a success. It can be that you tried something new, may have been a fail, but we all know that we learn from those things. So in our online community, on Mighty Networks. Each month I post a post. Goodbye. This one was goodbye July. Hello August. Share what you did. Share your Attic Girl moments. And nothing is too big or too small. Nothing is too small. Let's say that. So I am always so astounded at everything that has been accomplished by our women. And I know there are so many more things that haven't been shared. So we're just going to take a couple of minutes and I will read through some of those and add a girl to each and every one of you. Teresa shared that she's getting lots of veggies from her garden, huge tomatoes and other goodies. Another Teresa fixed the AC on her husband's car. Amazing. Atta girl. Gilda has been able to balance the garden and construction on the house, and the gardening is keeping her sane. I can relate to that. Atta girl. Pam is finally building walls in the pole building. She made 24 jars of apricot jam, also went huckleberry picking, and took a class on fermenting sauces and infused garlic. Freeze-dried cherries, sweet corn, and chicken. Took all kinds of free classes online. Atta girl. A lot of these women have also in the follow-up comments added additional information. So if something piques your interest, make sure you pop onto that post and check it out. Donna took a class in how to make sauces and infused honey, harvest garlic and raspberries, made sourdough bread and shared her starter, picked huckleberries, blueberries, and helped with local food bank distribution to over 250 families. Atta girl. Melody went to her first homestead convention, enjoyed having grandkids stay over, harvested her first real garlic, harvested tons from the garden so far, and hubby and her enjoyed their first vacation together in over 3 years. Esther posted a picture of her beautiful, I believe it's a jersey. I gave my girl a shot. I know, not a big deal, but for me it was. I hate shots and needles, and I have never given anything a shot. She's being AI'd on Friday, so hopefully she did it right. Amazing. Atta girl. Jennifer used her pressure canner for the first time. She canned green beans and spaghetti sauce. Atta girl. Deborah replaced rotted out wood floor on the shed and rebuilt doors, made some aronia berry jelly, and started making homemade almond milk. Incredible. Atta girl. Trisha's growing her first real garden and has dragon beans, and her daughter loves munching on them. Yay. Oh, amazing. I am always so inspired. Felicity harvested her first onion crop, planted her first turnip crop, and they've germinated. Planned next year's garden expansion with her partner. On paper, it's a big one. Budget feasibility to be determined. Atta girl. Let's see. Victoria made jam for the first time. Tomato basil. It's so yummy, she says, and there's a beautiful picture. Rebecca harvested green beans, zucchini, cucumbers, garlic, onions, cauliflower, and fresh herbs from her garden. She also started everything from seed. This year, she helped a fellow homesteader process over 100 meat birds and will be building her chicken run for her future egg layers this weekend from free wood she sourced through her son's high school when they rebuilt their homeside stadium. Atta girl. Let's see. I just love, and then the comments are helpful. Sometimes someone tried something new and has some questions, and so other women are sharing their knowledge about that. Jillian said she really slowed down this month, mostly because of the heat. She did manage to process some tomatoes and make some more progress building her online book selling business. I've got one watermelon that's thriving and I'm hoping it will be edible soon. Suzanne canned 2 batches of green beans, 1 batch of peach jam, and has been continuing to harvest squash, cucumbers, and beans, working on stock for her shop and shows. She did 1 craft show in July and has a big 2-day festival coming up this month. Also brought home the newest addition to her mini urban homestead. Looks like a beautiful cat. Bodie was a rescue from the rehab facility that her dad was at before he passed at the beginning of July. Atta girl. Jane Purdy, she shared beautiful golden raspberries. It just goes on and on. The list is fantastic. Daphne put up 98% of the insulation in their house build. They're on year 3 and plan to do a soft move-in by late summer, early fall. We hired a drywall crew and they have started. Atta girl. Carly, dehydrating parsley for the first time. Really grateful for a dehydrator as a form of food preservation. Again, another beautiful photo there. Valley made a run of sweet pickle relish. It's so delicious. A beautiful photo of that jar. Maureen spent a great weekend in Kidron with so many of us. It was great, wasn't it? I loved meeting you, Maureen, my neighbor to the north. I repotted 3 of my indoor plants. My spider plant was root bound in its old pot and not doing very well. In its new pot, it has sprouted all sorts of legs and is much happier. My tropical Christmas tree has lots of new growth and your aloe plant is huge. Atta girl, Maureen. Fantastic. Atta girl, ladies. Diana, also, her and her daughter started their first sourdough starter and canned 3 jars of banana peppers. First time ever water bath canning. Suzanne harvested all the oats for tinctures, honey, oxymel, and hydrosol distillation, blanching and freezing veggies, dehydrating fruits and herbs, brined up garlic from the garden for fermenting, and going to do the same with some green beans as well. Atta girl. Atta girl, ladies. Okay. I have some more. If
I actually
would you
think
like
I'm a little overwhelmed by the amount of activity that has gone on. So thank you so much, June. I really, really appreciate it. Ladies, you're incredible. Just want you to know we're out here celebrating for you. Love hearing these stories. You know, nothing, as June said, nothing is too small and nothing is too big. And so we just appreciate you sharing with us because yes, there are those days when you're like, why am I even doing this? It is so much work. Or as Jennifer was saying on here, somebody came up and ate all my gardens and, you know, I put all this effort in, but keep going and sharing your victories with us because that inspires the rest of us. So really, really appreciate you and appreciate your sharing with us. Okay, guess what's coming up in October? The Idaho National Gathering. I am so excited about it. I've been there once. The Idaho chapters had a retreat 2 years ago, I think, or 3 years ago, something. It was a couple years ago. And I drove over and it is gorgeous over there. It's up in northern Idaho. And I am so excited for those of you that have never been to northern Idaho for the possibility of you getting there. It's just, you will not be disappointed. It will be hard to come inside because the scenery is just incredible. And October should be amazing. I also wanted to share with you all, especially those of you who have already committed and signed up and are going to the event. And thank you. We have the registration link right here in the chat. So make sure that you guys do that if you're interested and don't wait. Because I know that Miranda and some of the other ladies there are just planning a really, really special time. So the sooner you get signed up, the easier it is for them to plan and make sure that everybody has what they're wanting to give you. So go ahead, don't wait, but do get signed up for that. But one of the things I wanted to tell you is there is a book, it's called May, and this is a real life person. And she lived in the 1800s, a pioneering woman. She was one of the greatest Pacific Northwest philanthropists, and she's from Wallace. And that's the very town where we will be holding the Idaho National Gathering. And so it's been incredible reading this book. I'm almost done with it. I should finish it tonight. But reading this book and realizing I'm going to be walking on the same streets that this woman walked on and be in that same town and know a person who lived in the 1800s that actually lived in Wallace. So this just adds to the excitement for me, because I love history, of showing up in Wallace. And then on Sunday, Miranda has planned a walk through history, and we will walk down the streets, and she will be the inspiration. This gal May will be the inspiration for that tour. So anyways, I hope that you all are able to make it. But like I said, please sign up as soon as possible. And yeah. And then if you get a chance, I just ordered this off of Thrift Books. It's actually cheaper than Amazon. And it wasn't that expensive for this book. And it's been very good. I've really enjoyed reading it. Okay, so the Idaho event is coming up in October. The link is in the chat. The next thing I want to let you know, we have been working feverishly, furiously on this cookbook. Ladies, it's incredible. The recipes are amazing. I know I wrote on a post one on our private online community that I am not much for the kitchen. I won't say I don't enjoy cooking. I'd much rather be outside raising food than in the kitchen creating food with it. But these recipes were so inspiring to me. So even though I don't have the book in my hand, I've been editing the recipes and, all the little nuances and making sure it's good for you all. But the recipes are incredible. You guys did a phenomenal job. Those of you who submitted recipes, they look really good. My favorite is the comments that people have, like why the recipe's in there, why the recipe is so special to them. That's my favorite. And there's a couple recipes in there that they're over 100 years old. So you're not going to get that recipe in just any old cookbook that you pick up today. So that makes it our cookbook really, really unique. And then some of the recipes you all have made up, and they sound amazing. So here's the thing though. We're going to put this link also in the chat room, is a pre-sale for our cookbooks. If you want to guarantee that your cookbook's going to get to you before the holidays, make sure you sign up for the pre-sale. And then there's all kinds of information that's in there. But I just really want to encourage you, if you have a recipe that's in there, like for myself, I put in my grandmother's, so it's my grandchildren's great-great-grandmother's cookie recipe for Christmas. So I'm buying all their moms the cookbook for Christmas, just because every year we're all like, who has Bima's Christmas cookie recipe? And now everybody will have it. And so if you're looking to give these gifts for Christmas, please, please, please get on there and sign up for the pre-sale so that you can guarantee that you will have them for Christmas gifts this coming holiday. So there you are. It's over in the chat, the link to that. You will not be disappointed. I will promise you that. There is something in there for everybody. Okay, and then the other thing, there's been a lot happening behind the scenes. Just have to tell you, a lot has been going on, a lot of work that's been going on. So for those of you that don't know, we actually switched our website platform. We upgraded significantly, and I got a sneak peek this last week at the new website, and it is beautiful, beautiful. Amanda has done a lot of the work. She's had other help from Miranda and a couple others on it, and it's just beautiful. I can't wait for you to see it. You're gonna love it. So those of you that have been trying to get onto stuff and maybe some of the links aren't working quite as well, be patient. it's coming. We're almost ready. Amanda's almost ready to roll it out. She is like picky, so it's going to be extra beautiful by the time you all get to see it. So huge thank you to the executive staff, all of them. Everybody's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes for you all. So let me see if I got everything on my list. I think I did. Hold on, I got to check Julie's list again that she gave. All right. Oh, guess what's next? Now we get to introduce Michelle. I actually am going to let Michelle introduce herself because all my paper says is introduce Michelle, and I don't know Michelle. But I do know what Michelle is talking about tonight, and she's talking about herbal teas, and I am beyond excited to learn from her. So I have my notepad here ready to go. I have my pen, and Michelle, if you don't mind coming on and sharing with us all your fabulous knowledge about herbal teas, we so appreciate you being here with us tonight. And I have to say, I did see her kitchen beforehand. Is that not a dream kitchen? Look at the size and the cupboards, all the jars that are full of herbs, like so excited. Thank you, Michelle, for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an absolute honor. And my kitchen is definitely a dream kitchen. We actually bought our home. It was more of a shop than a home. And so this has been a major labor of love. When we moved in, there was one light in the entire house and the floors were splatter painted, and it was a little ridiculous. So this has been a major labor of love for my family and I am beyond grateful for what we have. We started with a big empty box that was a box that was barely livable, and now it is an absolute dream. So thank you. Well, I am Michelle McInich, and I'm so glad to be here tonight. I'm an herbalist out of North Idaho. I live in Athol. It's kind of a ridiculous name, but I love this town and love everything about it. So not too far away from some of you gals that were on there. I am, as I said, I'm in North Idaho, not too far from Coeur d'Alene, just 20 or so minutes north of Coeur d'Alene. And I have learned over the past few years that I live in a pharmacy, and that's really what I'm going to be teaching you ladies tonight. My herbal journey started really when the shutdown did, and I had been making some of my own skincare and doing things here and there, and we've had a garden, but I never really understood what was growing around me, and that the weeds and the wildflowers that I walked on every single day were quite literally God's mercy to my family and me, and that they could be medicine for our family and they could heal our family. And so as I teach tonight, I won't be teaching about black tea or green tea or matcha tea or anything like that. I'm going to be teaching about how to make tea from the plants growing in your yard, because to me, that is what we need. We need to be working with our surroundings, because our surroundings are thriving in the toxins that are in our area and in the weather and all the things that are bombarding our bodies. The weeds and the wildflowers and the wild plants are learning to thrive in them. And as they thrive, we put them in our body, we'll thrive too. So that is what you'll be learning tonight. So I'll go back a little bit to where I started. So my story of becoming an herbalist started with the shutdown. And it all started because I noticed there were certain medications that all of a sudden were no longer available or were controversial for one reason or another. And my family needed those. And so it got me looking in my yard and going, I need to change things here. And so as I started looking in my yard, I realized that I quite literally had remedies for the things that were hurting my family and the things that were getting us sick. And so we started picking weeds and using them. And as we used them more and more, we realized that they were healing our bodies. And people started learning about what we were learning and the different plants that we were bringing on. And we looked probably a little interesting because we were handing out bags of green weeds to weeds with an S to whoever wanted them. And we were seeing people get healed of all these different things. And it was so amazing, and realizing that we quite literally do live in a pharmacy. So that is where it all started. So it all started for me with the mullein plant, realizing that mullein could help respiratory health unlike anything else. And then as that grew, then it grew into other plants, and learned, I basically got every book that I could find about Pacific Northwest plants and how to use them, because I do use plants from other parts of the world, but really I'm interested in using what's local to me. And so that's my specialty, is what's local in the Northwest. And pretty much what's local in the Northwest is local pretty much anywhere in the US as well. A lot of us have similar plants growing. So when I share about plants tonight, even if you're not in the Pacific Northwest, you probably have them growing in your yard as well. All right, so I talked a little bit about this, but before we actually get into making tea, let's talk about why I use weeds and wildflowers versus domesticated plants or even store-bought plants. The reason why is because they know how to thrive. When you think about the dandelion growing in the Walmart parking lot, and that dandelion seems to get bigger to me every time I drive by it, even though it's being smushed and there's probably cigarette butts being put in it and there's so many toxins and poisons, and yet it just keeps growing. And then the tomatoes in our garden, no matter how hard we try, some just won't make it. That is the difference between wild and domesticated. Wild plants, they learn how to be resilient with all of the toxins and everything that is in their way. And that resilience, when we put it in our body, whether internally or we make it into a cell, and put it on externally even, it gets into ours and we get that resilience. So that's why I really love to focus on wild plants. So I am a tea maker, and I should talk about what we do. So I run Tamarack Garden, and my family and I run Tamarack Garden. And as an herbalist, I make teas and medicinal salves and tinctures, and use herbs to make all sorts of remedies. And so at the end of this webinar, I'll share a little more about the different things that I have available, and you can check out our website. But I use 99% of what I use to make the different teas that we do, and all the different products, whether it's sunscreen or an anti-aging cream or a tincture to detoxify your liver. They're all made from things that grow in my yard or are very, very close to me. It's absolutely amazing. So, kind of silly, but I make tea for a living. I'm an herbalist, but I absolutely will take a cup of coffee over a cup of tea any day, any day. So, but I know that tea is good for me, and I know that I need the plants that are growing around me, and I know that taking them as a tea is a great thing. And so I have learned to make them taste really good. And as I work hard to get them tasting good, I wanted to share that with you gals. So as we're going, if you're thinking, oh, my kids, they will never drink a cup of tea, I will teach you some tricks tonight to get tea into your children, and it could be awesome. So here we go. We're going to start talking about the basics of how to make a really good pot of tea, how to do it. There really is a science behind it. And when I say science, it's really more of an artistic science. Working with herbs is far more art than it is science. So when I give you guys ratios, or I tell you about percentages, please know that there are no hard and fast rules. That when it comes to herbs, you need to listen to your body. If you're making it for your children, as mama or as grandma, you know your children and you know what they want, you know what their bodies may need. And so you definitely don't have to follow the rules. A lot of the teas that I sell on our website don't necessarily follow the rules exactly, but they do, but most of them do. Not always though, and they still do work great. But let's get into it. So teas typically, you'll have a triangle of, we're gonna have a triangle blending triangle for our teas. So the way that that works is we're going to have a primary action herb, we're going to have a support herb, and also a catalyst herb. So the primary action herb, you want to be about 70 to 80% of your tea that you're making. And that needs to be an herb that specifically addresses your main complaint. So if it's a headache, it could be something like feverfew. If it's nausea, maybe it would be peppermint. If it's menstrual cramps, maybe that would be red raspberry leaf. So that's your primary, your number one herb that you're using. And you want that to have the highest volume in your tea. And some examples of primary herbs are things like St. John's wort, meadowsweet, and mullein. Also red clover and self-heal. And I have a few of those here. Self-heal is one that we'll be working with tonight, making a tea. Self-heal is one of the most fantastic little herbs. And this looks like a teeny tiny lavender. It grows really low to the ground, but self-heal is fantastic for basically, it goes, the name says it, it helps heal yourself, and it can help heal so many different things, but it's especially helpful for anything mouth or throat related. So we've got our primary herbs, and then so that's 70 to 80%. And then we're going to move into our supporting herbs. So our supporting herbs are going to be 10 to 20% of our tea. And that is going to be typically something that's really full of nutrition, possibly has something that can help our nervous system, something that can help us calm down. So when you think of calming herbs, a lot of people will think of things like lavender, or peppermint can be another one, chamomile, things that are really calming to the system. Typically, that's going to be your supporting herbs. And so those are going to come alongside and help your primary herb work even better. So your supporting herbs will be 10 to 20% of your tea. And then moving into the catalysts. So the catalyst is the last angle in our triangle. The catalyst herb, when I think about a catalyst herb, it is a plant that causes a reaction. It causes you to go, oh, I noticed that. So it could be something like cinnamon or cayenne pepper, hibiscus. Hibiscus I have over here. Hibiscus is one of my very, very favorite herbs to work with. Whoop, there it goes. In the herbalist world, we call hibiscus nature's Botox. And so I kind of like to bathe in it. But hibiscus can help to make some teas that maybe are not so delicious, far more delicious. And they also help to boost it and to get it going. So we've got our primary action herb, which is going to be 70 to 80% of our tea. We've got our supporting herb, which will be 10 to 20%, and that's typically something that's nutrient dense and something that's going to probably help calm our system, or be what's called an adaptogen, which is something that helps your body adapt to its surrounding. So maybe not feeling so nervous. And then the last one, the catalyst herb, which is another 10 to 20%. You want that to be the smallest amount, partly because it's so strong, but also because typically the taste is very, very strong. And so you'll want to have that be your smallest amount. Otherwise, it will really take over and it may not be quite so delicious. So let's do that. Oh, actually, before we get into actually making some teas, let's talk about one other thing. The reason why we have a triangle is because the body, and this is not necessarily scientific fact, but I have learned so much from other herbalists as I continue on my journey of learning about plants and how to use them and how our body reacts to them and responds to them. And I was listening to an herbalist recently, and what she said really struck true to me. But our body tends to work in opposites. So hot, cold, fast, slow, dry, wet. We tend to work in one side or the other. And so working with an odd number in your teas or in your herbs, it can tend to surprise the body a little bit and go, oh, I see you there and I recognize you and I think I'm going to use you. And so I've found that in my teas as well, I always try to stick with an odd number of herbs. And I've noticed that it really does make a difference because it seems your body seems to recognize it more and go, I see you there and I like what you're doing. So let's, before we go any further, let's make some tea. So let's do this in real life. So we're going to make a tea. Let's make a cold and flu tea. And I will only be using plants that I have gotten in my yard. So our primary herb is going to be yarrow. Yarrow grows wild all over North America, really all over the world. Yarrow is fantastic for, actually, let's talk about yarrow for a second. I love yarrow. It is absolutely one of my very favorite herbs to work with. If I would kind of consider it my desert island herb. If I only had one, I would want yarrow. So yarrow is, its Latin name is Achillea millefolium. And it came by that name, Achillea, after the great warrior Achilles. And so the legend goes that Achilles, when he would go to war, he would always have a satchel of dried yarrow on his side. And whenever any of his warriors would get injured, he would pour the yarrow on them and they would immediately get healed and go back into battle. And I'm not so sure that it was, all of that was true, but absolutely I know that in some way it is, because yarrow is a really powerful herb and I've seen it do amazing things in my own family. Yarrow is incredible. It's a plant that goes where it's needed. So when you put it in your body, it goes to where it's needed and it does what it needs to do. So if you are, since we're using this for cold and flu, yarrow is fantastic for helping with fevers because if your body is hot and tight and tense, it will open up your capillaries and allow your body to breathe and allow some of that heat to get out, but while also supporting your body and supporting that fever and letting it do what it needs to do. But if you have a kiddo with a bloody nose, I have a kiddo that is very prone to bloody noses. And so what we figured out is that yarrow can also, the way that it can open your capillaries, if you're tight and hot, well, if you're bleeding, it will go to the area and close off those capillaries and stop the bleeding. And so when I have a little guy, you could make a tea for nosebleeds and it could just be yarrow, but I would definitely add more because yarrow does not taste great. I like to consider myself a realistic herbalist, and not all herbs taste fantastic. So yarrow is one of those that is not fantastic, especially for kiddos. So you definitely will want to add more to it. But if you have a kiddo with a nosebleed, have some yarrow on hand. All right, I digress. Back to our tea. So we are going to do, for our primary herb, for our cold and flu tea, we are going to, and I'm going to be using my hands since these are my own herbs, we're going to be doing 70 to 80% of yarrow, and I'm going to be eyeballing it, but if you are someone that would really like to be exact, I would recommend using a kitchen scale. Kitchen scales are fantastic for making sure that you've got what you need. When I'm making my teas on a larger scale for selling, I make sure that I use a kitchen scale because it really does help to make sure that you get the same thing each time. But for this one, I'm going to eyeball it. So we've got our yarrow here. And then we will be moving on. So that is my primary herb. My primary herb is yarrow. All right. For my supporting herbs, I will be using fir needles and calendula. And just a few minutes ago, I went out to my garden and I picked some calendula flowers. Calendula is fantastic for cold and flu. it has a way to mend the skin, and the same way it mends the skin, it also helps to mend on the inside. And it's a potent anti-inflammatory and can help to soothe, especially soothe cold and flu symptoms. And so I'm using fresh and dried. They're really, when it comes to tea, you can use fresh, dried, whatever you've got available, use it. I definitely would recommend using fresh if you've got it, because it's the freshest. But dried as well is wonderful. So we've
Michelle,
yeah.
we do have a question. What part of yarrow do you use in your teas?
Oh, what a great question. Awesome. And thank you so much. Please ask all your questions. So for yarrow, we use the top part, the white flowers that kind of look lacy. And then as well, we also use the leaves. So the leaves that look almost fern-like, you want the leaves and the flowers, and you can use them both interchangeably. They're entirely medicinal, both of them. The stems as well, I typically will throw in a little stem, and it doesn't have as much medicinal value, but sometimes it's easier just to throw the whole thing in than to pick each little bit off. So you realistically can use the whole thing. All right. I hope that answered your question. Feel free to ask more if you've got more. So we're going to keep going. Okay, so we've got calendula flowers for mending our insides, and then fir needles. I love working with fir needles. Fir needles are always my go-to because they are readily available. And here's one really, really incredible thing. And one thing that I find so amazing, that when you need a plant, it is typically there. And in the winter, when most of us, well, at least in Idaho, for sure that's the case. And I'm sure, I know a lot of the US is the case. But in the winter, when there's really nothing growing because everything is covered in snow, except we have our fir trees and our pine trees. And in the winter, fir trees, deciduous trees, did I say that right? I believe so. So the fir trees, pine trees are conifers. Their medicinal value boosts. And in the winter is when they have the most medicinal value. And that's the time when they're literally the only thing we can get. And so I have made a lot of teas for my kids in the winter. Just run outside, grab some fir needles, throw it in a pot of water, and help them to feel better. I actually have I cut up my Christmas tree. We always just go and cut down our Christmas tree out in the woods. And so at the end of the season, I was like, it's dried, perfect. I'm gonna save it for tea. So I literally cut up my Christmas tree and put it in a big jar. And we used it for tea for a long time. Great way
Michelle,
yeah.
we've got another question. We
Awesome.
want, Melody would like clarification if it's any fir that you can use.
Yes, so with fir, it is any fir, 100%, any fir at all. With pine trees, they're a little bit different. There is one pine tree, it's called the yew pine, Y-E-W, and that one is considered toxic. There actually are some medicinal benefits to it as well, but because it does have toxic qualities as well, I would recommend staying away from it unless if you're working with a practitioner, then you could use it. But for fir needles, absolutely any fir tree at all. And then for pine needles, anything but the yew pine, which the yew pine is typically one that is more decorative. So you usually see it at like in someone's lawn, and it's typically a bit more manicured. So probably wouldn't really even think of snagging a bite of it. But yes, great question. Any fir tree. So fir needles, let's keep talking about fir. Fir needles have 10%, or sorry, they have 10 times more vitamin C than an entire orange in one needle. They're fantastic. The taste, it's okay. I kind of wish I had a spit bucket here though. So I've heard another herbalist talk about fir trees as nature's citrus, or as forest citrus, and they absolutely are. They have a very lemony flavor, and so they really do help with a tea to make it a bit more palatable, because they add a great lemony flavor to it. So I've got my 70% yarrow, and then I have my 10 to 20% of my supporting herbs with my calendula and fir needles. And then for a catalyst, I will be working with echinacea. Echinacea is a fantastic catalyst to have. It really tells the other herbs that it's with, come on guys, get going, let's do this. And so we'll be adding in just a little. This is some echinacea that I got from a girlfriend's yard last year. And I have some growing in my garden today. I was thinking about cutting it, but I'm not quite ready to cut it down yet. So we're using some dried stuff from last year. So we've got that echinacea. The reason why I add echinacea, besides the fact that it's a catalyst, is because echinacea boosts your immune system. It is fantastic to use, especially if you catch a cold or flu within the first few days. It will 100% help your body to fight it off. And I have seen it work with my own children many, many times. So
We've got one more question.
awesome, let's hear it.
Do the fir needles have to be fresh?
Not a bit. So fir needles can be fresh or dried. Really, the key with drying plants is if it turns, so with the fir needle, you know, they're green. If you're drying them and they turn brown as dirt, they're probably not real medicinal anymore. So when you're working with dried plants, you want them to look pretty much the same as they did when they were fresh, but just not quite as bright. And you still definitely want them to have a scent as well. So that's a good key, but by no means do they have to be fresh. A lot of the teas that I make for Tamarack Garden have fir needles in them. And for that, I always make sure that they're dried because I am making teas in bulk and I don't want them to spoil, because fir needles, certainly they're not real wet, but they could absolutely spoil. So I definitely do dried for that. And I just make sure that they are quite bright. All right, so we've got our tea made. Looking lovely. And for a medicinal tea, I would let it steep anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. You really, really want to get the most bang for your buck with this. And my recommendation, especially if you are making a tea for medicine for your family, either for your kids or for yourself, and it's something that you want to take over the course of a whole day, I would make a whole quart jar's worth of it and then just save it, pop it in the fridge, or just leave it out on the stove and then just keep sipping on it all day long. So we're going to pretend like this has been steeping for a solid 30 minutes. And the way that I like to strain my teas when I'm working with them with plants in my yard is to use a metal strainer, a stainless steel strainer. You definitely want to work with stainless steel. Working with things like copper or aluminum can actually pull some of the medicinal value out of your plants. And so stainless steel is the best one to work with. Stainless steel or wood would be the ones to work with, that, or glass would be the ones to work with that would not pull the medicinal values out. So we are going to attempt not to spill all this and do a good strain. The other thing I have here is my muslin cloth, and I swear it's clean. I don't bleach them, and so they wind up taking on all sorts of different colors. Woo! Just barely made it. Look at that. All right, let's see how we did. Not too shabby. For a girl that doesn't like tea very much, I would definitely drink this. And especially because I know it would make me feel better. So here's a trick. If you have kiddos and you're like, girl, that thing could taste great, but my kids are not going to drink it, mainly because it's made with weeds, or they saw what I put in it. A great trick to make pretty much anything taste better is to throw a cinnamon stick in. Let it sit for a while, and that cinnamon stick will cover a multitude of sins. And they will taste the cinnamon. It will have more like a cidery taste, and it will definitely help. So cinnamon sticks are my absolute go-to for my children. I don't have little bitty kids anymore. My youngest is 11, but I still fight them on drinking tea sometimes. Not as much as I used to though, because they know now that they really, really do help them feel better. And they've experienced it over and over and over again. And so they don't fight me as much. especially my one with nosebleeds, because he knows that I know what I'm doing and that he's going to feel better in the end. All right, let's talk about some other kinds of teas now. We talked about herbal tea, and we'll talk about some more herbal tea recipes in a bit. I should have started saying this in the beginning, but I will make sure that I get Julie my notes so that you gals will have that, because I know sometimes it's hard to keep up and write it all down. But if you do have a notepad, definitely take down some notes. I'll be giving some specific recipes in a little while for some different ailments and some different teas you could use that are probably plants that are either growing in your yard or nearby. And so we'll have some recipes that you can add to your collection, your medicinal army. But let's talk about something else. Let's talk about working with roots. So why work with roots? Well, roots are typically really, really nutrient dense. When you have plants that have roots that go very, very deep, that have a really, really strong taproot, that typically means that they are full of nutrients and also that they have detoxifying benefits. So I like to work with roots when I'm really, really not feeling well, or if I'm helping someone out that has been maybe on a lot of medications and needs to flush them out of their body, roots are a really good option. Also, if you are fighting some kind of a virus or bacteria, making a tea with roots can be a really great idea. So some specific roots that I like to work with are, doesn't look much like it anymore. I did just pick it not too long ago, but it's already pretty sad. But this is mallow, which is in the marshmallow family. Actually, the original marshmallows, like that you would roast over the fire, they come from mallow root. And in France is where they started, and they would actually make marshmallows for children to suck on when they had a sore throat, and they made it out of the root. And that's obviously not the same anymore, but you can make marshmallows out of mallow root. I have done it before. And if you're interested in the recipe, I can definitely get it to you. It doesn't taste like, your typical marshmallow, but you can add some peppermint or some cocoa to it and make it a little more palatable for kiddos. So mallow root, what would I use mallow root for? I would use it for a UTI, especially for a UTI. It's fantastic. Mallow root and mallow in general has what's called mucilage. And so it means that it gets thick and it can get very mucousy, for lack of better words. And so when you ingest it, it can stick to the walls of your body and it can help to flush out things that are trying to hold on. Another good root to work with for a UTI would be dandelion root. Dandelion root, this is a teeny tiny little guy, so not nearly as long as they usually are. Dandelion roots, I mean, we all know from trying to pull them up out of our garden, they are enormous, but they are full of nutrients and can absolutely help to flush out your system. They can help to clean out your liver, and they're a great diuretic, causing you to get rid of excess liquid. Fantastic. Another good one would be mullein root. Mullein root is fantastic as well for UTIs, for detoxifying the system. And they are so very, very nutrient dense. One little bit with mullein specifically. So mullein is absolutely one of the most underrated plants on the planet as far as I'm concerned. And it really is all over the world. But mullein is what's known as a hyperaccumulator. And so mullein has been used historically in areas where there's been like smelting, or there have been spills, where there's been poison on the ground or toxins that's leached into the ground. Companies will go and they will plant mullein because mullein absorbs what's in the ground better than many other plants. And so if you are going out to harvest mullein, you want to make sure that you're harvesting from an area that doesn't have poison in the ground, because it will pull it up in spades and then you will ingest it. So really important that you know where you're harvesting from. That's important as far as any plant goes, but especially with mullein. So mullein root, dandelion root, mallow root, Those are three of my favorites to work with, but we have so many more that grow all over the US. Burdock root is another one that is fantastic. I do, before I go into making a tea out of roots, because it is a different monster altogether, I want to talk about a fantastic tea that's made out of roots. And this is one I'm actually gonna have a bag of it, because most of the ingredients grow local to me, but I just didn't really feel like making it. It's a bit of a labor of love, and so I purchased it. But this is called Essiac tea, and I got it from Mountain Rose Herbs. I really like that company. So Essiac tea is made from burdock root, sheep sorrel powder, so sheep sorrel root, slippery elm bark, and turkey rhubarb root. And burdock root, burdock, sheep sorrel, and slippery elm are all three plants that grow somewhat close to me. Sheep sorrel and burdock are ones that I have growing like crazy in my garden right now. So why am I talking about Essiac tea? Talking about Essiac tea because this is a very, very potent cancer remedy. And if you or someone you love is battling cancer, this would be a very good thing to add to your arsenal. So the history of Essiac tea, it's was started, as far as I know, from everything that I've researched about it, it was started by Native Canadians, and a woman who was an oncology nurse in Canada, her name was Renee Case. She was helping people heal from cancer. And one of her patients came in and was completely, went from being very, very sick to well. And she asked him what happened. And he said, I took Essiac tea. I took the tea that my medicine man gave me. And so Essiac tea is fantastic for, it's a huge detoxifier for removing poison out of your body and for flushing it out. And so it's called Essiac tea because it is her last name, Case, spelled backwards. So that's Essiac tea. I highly recommend getting this and having it, just having it in your pantry. It's a bit of a labor of love to make. It takes a long time to steep, and it does not taste terrible, thankfully, but it's definitely not something I would drink on the daily. And it's also not necessarily something you want to drink daily because it is so very strong and so very detoxifying. It's something that you only need in small doses every now and then, unless you're fighting cancer. And that's a time when you definitely would want to hype it up.
Michelle,
Yes.
could you spell that tea for us, please?
Oh, for sure. It is ESSIAC, Essiac tea, ESSIAC.
And then we have one more question.
Awesome. Let's hear it.
It's about the roots. It says a lot of herbs seem to have the same benefits. How do you decide which one to use? For example, the 3 roots that you chose.
That is a great question. You know what? That is really the beauty of plants and herbs, that I tend to go with what I have available because there are so many plants that do similar things. But if you have a question about, man, I have mallow root and I have dandelion root, which one do I choose out of the 2 of them? I would purchase an herb book. There are a lot of them. I think I sent some to Julie, but I'll make sure that they're in my notes, some of my very favorites. I would just start to learn about the herbs that are growing in your local area and what they specifically do. So for mallow, it's fantastic for not just UTIs, but also for sore throats, where dandelion, it would definitely help a sore throat, but it's much better for a UTI than for a sore throat. You could definitely interchange them in a lot of ways, but I would just, at that point, I would go to a good herb book. I would say go to Google, but man, oh man, lately, I'm sure all of you ladies can attest to this. It is hard to find good information online. There are a couple of websites that I tend to really like and have found good information on. I'll make sure that I send those in the notes as well. One of them is called organicfacts.com, and another one is eattheplanet.com. Both of those are fantastic for learning about all the medicinal benefits in a certain plant. So they both have a search bar up top. You type in the plant that you've got, and it will give you all the information about the medicinal benefits, what part of the plant you consume, if any of it is toxic, what it looks like, where it grows, what its growing zone is. I really like those two websites in particular, and they have helped me quite a bit when I've had questions that maybe I didn't have my books with me and I couldn't go to, or just needed to find it on the fly while I was out hiking around. Those two have been great. That was a really good question. So let's talk about working with roots. So when you've got roots and bark, so when I talk about roots, I'll be talking about bark as well. So slippery elm bark, cinnamon can be one of them, because that is absolutely a bark. But what you want to do is, the best way to work with roots would be to grind it into a powder like the Essiac tea. But if you don't have a grinder, you could do a coffee grinder. I would not mix herbs and coffee together in the same grinder though, because it will never taste the same again. So I would have a specific grinder just for roots if you're going to do that. But you also can just use some clippers or scissors and just cut it into small pieces. And then when you are working with roots will always take longer to steep than an herbs will, because they're so much more dense and it will take a whole lot more finessing to get the medicinal benefits out of them. So what you would want to do is take your roots, get some hot boiling water on them, and then pop them in a mason jar. Just let them sit. Let them sit as long as you've got. If you've got all day, let them sit all day. They will just get better and better and better, and you will pull more of the medicine out. I would give it at least 30 minutes. But man, the longer you can let your roots and your bark steep, the better quality tea you will get, and the more medicinal benefits your body will be able to take in. All right. So we've got
a question about roots.
Awesome. Let's hear it.
So this is specifically about licorice root, but how do you harvest the root? And then do you have to take it all, or do you leave some so that it keeps growing?
Great question. So licorice root is actually not one that I work with very regularly, so I don't have a whole lot of answers on that one. But as far as roots in general, as long as it's a plant that I see is growing quite wild, like a dandelion or mallow, which you will never get rid of them ever, I have no problem with taking the root. If it's something that maybe is a bit harder to come by, like for me, I had to grow comfrey in my garden because I didn't have any growing wild. And so I am not going to harvest those roots. And if I do, I will only harvest, I'll probably cut it in half and then just harvest a little bit of it. So I would really just use your best judgment. If it's something that you see, man, this plant is everywhere, I would absolutely pull that whole root and use the whole thing and dry it out and save it and savor it. But if it's something where you go, man, I've only seen a couple of them and I haven't seen very many more, then I would definitely not be as liberal with it, and I would use quite a bit less. So I would just use my best judgment on that one. And as far as licorice root goes, I would definitely go into check one of those two websites that I recommended, and that would give you some good information on that one, because that is not one that I have worked with a whole lot, unfortunately. All right.
We've got one more question. Can you
Let's
make
hear it.
the root mixture ahead and freeze it for the future?
Oh, 100% yes. Definitely, definitely, definitely. You can freeze any of these remedies and they'll be great. Especially with roots, I know since they are so hardy, they don't mind the extreme temperatures of extreme hot boiling water and the extreme cold of freezing. But with herbs more, you could lose some of the medicinal value if you freeze an herbal tea, because herbs are a bit more delicate and they really don't do great with boiling hot water or really, really cold water. Herbs are best kind of right in that happy medium of in between warm and hot, or in between cold and warm. You kind of want them more of a temperate versus a hot or cold. But with the roots, 100%, you could freeze it, no problem. Another awesome question. So let's see. I'm just taking a look at my notes here because I want to make sure I don't miss anything important. All right, let's talk about some specific ways to practically make teas with what you've got around your house. Most of us have a French press, and I absolutely love making tea with a French press because it is so very easy. as long as you're not working, well, actually even with ground herbs, you can still do it. So I'll share another recipe with you guys right now, and we'll make one with our French press. So let's make a recipe for, let's say, what are we going to do? Let's make a recipe for pain. So if you have someone that has back pain or headaches or any kind of pain in general, this would be a tea for you. So we are going to start with our primary herb of meadowsweet. If you have not met meadowsweet yet, you should. Meadowsweet is amazing. It literally looks like a cotton candy tree. It's like sometimes little cone-shaped flowers, sometimes they're rounded, but it quite literally looks like cotton candy growing on a tree. So we're going to do 70% of our meadowsweet. That will be our primary herb. The reason why I'm using meadowsweet is because it has salicin in it. And salicin, if you were to look on an aspirin bottle, salicin is the #1 ingredient in aspirin. So you literally have aspirin growing in your yard. If you don't have meadowsweet growing in your yard, you could look for a birch tree or a willow tree or an aspen tree and cut into the bark. The inner bark that's kind of an orangey color also has salicin in it, and you could use that for pain relief. That would be another fantastic remedy. So we've got our meadowsweet, and then I'm going to be adding in catnip and lemon balm. All right, so we've got our catnip. I think we'll just do catnip just for sake of time. Catnip is amazing. So catnip for cats obviously makes them go crazy. For humans, it is a nervine, meaning it goes straight to our nervous system and it can help us calm down. So it is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful for pain, calming, for soothing. Anxiety is another good one for catnip. And then let's see, our last ingredient will be, let's do peppermint. So our catalyst, which we will add the least amount of, will be peppermint. And we all know peppermint, it definitely beckons a response because peppermint can be very, very strong tasting. And so since I'm working with herbs, and catnip in particular has some volatile oils and does not do great with really, really high heat. So I have a fairly low heat water, which is not too hot, not too cold. And then I would let this steep again for a good 15 or so minutes. And then voila.
We've got a question about the steeping.
Yes, let's hear it.
So if the water cools and sits, are you still pulling the benefits from the plants that have that are in there?
Great question. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Because the medicine has gone into the water and has been pulled out of the plant. So it doesn't matter how long it sits. The medicine is in the water now. It's been pulled out. So you're good to go. Another good question. All right, here's our French press tea for pain. Another good one. Another one that this non-tea drinking girl can handle. All right. Let's see here. Before I go into a few more recipes, I want to make sure that I've hit all of the details that I wanted to hit. Let's talk
We've
about.
got a couple questions about your last recipe.
Awesome. Let's hear it.
So how many of each herb are you using? And you haven't mentioned how much water you're using.
I haven't. Thank you for asking. That's a great idea. So typically, when you're doing a cup of tea, you want to do 1 tablespoon of herbs per cup of tea. So if you were doing a whole quart of tea, I would say a quart of tea would probably be, I don't know, 4 or 5 cups. So you'd want to times that by 4. So 4 tablespoons of herbs. And then you just want to follow that, the majority primary herb, and then the supporting herb 10 to 20%, and then the catalyst, the teeny tiny little bit. So for a cup of tea though, if you're just making 1 cup of tea just to have in the morning, or for a kiddo that's not feeling great, you just really want to do 1 tablespoon of herbs all together for 1 cup of tea. So for this typical mug, a tablespoon at the most, but for little ones, it could even be a teaspoon. And then, was there one other question about it?
It was just how much water and how much of each herb. So I think you covered both of them.
Okay, awesome, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for asking that. I'm glad you did. So let's talk about kids and tea, because kiddos can obviously, they can't take tea the way that we adults take it. And a child doesn't need an adult dose. So how much do you give a child? Well, a good rule of thumb is 1 sip per year of life for children, say 12 and under. So if you have a 2-year-old, give them 2 sips every hour. 2 sips, even every 3 hours. There's not a hard, fast rule on it, but it's 2 sips at a time over an extended length of time. And so if you have a 12-year-old, for me, my 11-year-old is almost as tall as I am, so I give him an adult dose of tea if he'll drink it. He won't usually drink it all, but if he will, he'll get it. But I make sure he has at least 11 sips, and that typically will help him out quite a bit. It's amazing how tea is so gentle, and yet it is so very effective. So very, very effective. All right, let's talk a little bit more about some specific remedies and some specific recipes that we can use. And just before I get into that, I want to encourage you gals that making tea does not, and having good medicine for your family does not ever, ever, ever have to be expensive. If you have a yard, if you can get to national forest or state land, or if you have a neighbor that's on acreage, then go ask to go weed their yard. And that is actually a lot of these herbs that are back here. They aren't from my yard. They're either from national forest or they're from going over to a friend's yard, like lemon balm. Lemon balm is something that doesn't grow in my yard, and I haven't ever planted it. But I have a girlfriend that has a lot of it. And so I went and I harvested all of hers, because for her it was a pain in the tuchus and she didn't want it anymore. And so I was able to harvest all of it. So if you can't get your hands on it, if it's not growing in your own yard, start asking around, or just go take a hike and see if you can find some. And you probably will find what you need. And most of the herbs here, I think out of all of them, I think I've maybe bought the herbs out of maybe 2 of those jars. It's just amazing what you can get when you just start looking around. Read those herbal books, get your hands on a book about the plants that grow local to you, and get outside. The best way to learn about herbs and the best way to learn how they work with your body is to read about them and then go practice, and read and practice. That is how I became an herbalist, was reading and practicing and reading and practicing and learning how they work with our bodies, and then being able to help people, and help myself first, and then help my family, and then help our community. It's been absolutely amazing. So let's talk about some specific recipes that you can use that would help your family and would help you. So we've already done one for pain, which was meadowsweet, birch, aspen, or willow for our primary herb. We've got catnip, but you could also add in lemon balm. Catnip and lemon balm would be great for the supporting herb. And then for a catalyst, it could be peppermint, but you could also add in lavender, or get this, black pepper. Black pepper is an amazing catalyst. Whenever you add pepper to something, you immediately boost its medicinal benefits. And so you could throw in a couple of peppercorns. It actually does not have as strong of a flavor as you would think, and sometimes just intensify the flavors that are already there. So black pepper, that would be another great one to add to a pain tea. Another good one that would be to add to a pain tea could be cayenne pepper. Obviously with this, you just need a teeny tiny little bit, but cayenne pepper is amazing for pain specifically, and a great catalyst. So then we have our cold and flu tea that we made, and that was yarrow as our primary herb. Our supporting herbs were calendula and fir needles. And then our catalyst was echinacea. So if you would like a tea for menstrual cramps, this is one that actually I sell, but I wanted to give you guys the recipe here because This tea has replaced ibuprofen for me. I once a month was addicted to ibuprofen and I don't have to use it anymore. And so what I use is my primary herb is yarrow. And then my supporting herbs are red raspberry leaf and nettle. And I also sometimes will throw in some red clover. Red clover is a wonderful, wonderful weed that is fantastic for women's health specifically. It helps our lymphatic system and it helps us flush along and move along lymphatic fluid. So we've got our primary and supporting herbs, and then our catalyst would be peppermint, or you could use cocoa nibs. Cocoa nibs are these, obviously don't have growing in North Idaho, so I buy them. I love this brand, Anthony's, and these are organic cocoa nibs, and they just look like little bits of dark chocolate. They don't melt in your hot tea. They just will give you that great chocolatey flavor and have so many fantastic anti-inflammatory benefits. And they are a great catalyst to boost that tea to do what it needs to do. So let's do another recipe real quick before we're all done. And that would be for sore throats. This is a fantastic one. And as well from plants that grow right in our yards. So we've got, for our primary herb, self-heal. Self-heal looks like a little teeny tiny lavender, and it grows typically at the edge of forests or in yards, grasses typically. So we've got self-heal for our primary herb. That's great for helping anything mouth or throat related. And then for our supporting herbs, we've got mallow, which we talked about earlier, and then also plantain, not the banana, but the weed, plantain, the weed. And if you're hearing me talk about these and you go, man, I don't know what that looks like, hop on one of those websites or just get yourself a great herb book that has herbs that are local to you and you'll find it. And I cannot attest to how much it is, how important it is just to read about the plants around you. You will learn so much and you will gain so much. You'll be more courageous to jump out there and to do what you need to do. So we've got those guys. And then our catalyst for our sore throat would be echinacea. I'm gonna clear out a little room here because we're gonna talk about a couple more things. So let's see, I've got one more recipe for you guys for a tea, and that would be for a fever. And I think we talked about this in the beginning, but yarrow is fantastic, fantastic, fantastic for fevers, for supporting them. Not necessarily for lowering them all that much, but it will support the fever and help your body to not be as uncomfortable. So I would do yarrow as my primary herb. And then I would use, for a secondary herb, I would probably use rose petals. Yarrow and rose petals are very, very good friends and they work great together. Rose petals are fantastic for soothing the nervous system and calming down. And then for a catalyst, I would use peppermint. Those three herbs together are great friends. And one thing I didn't say earlier, but I should have, is herbs are like people and we're great alone. We can do a lot of wonderful things alone, but we are always so much better when we work together. And herbs are the same way. Herbs are always better when they work together. So as you are learning about what plants to use or grabbing your herbal books, keep that in the back of your mind that, well, I could make a tea out of just yarrow, but I bet if I added peppermint to it, maybe even rose petal, it probably would be better. And it really will. A tea made of yarrow is fantastic and there's certainly nothing wrong with it and it will absolutely help your body. But a tea with all three of those herbs will be even better.
We've got a quick question about going back to the cocoa.
Great.
What are your thoughts of the tenet of the cocoa bean drink with the herbal teas?
I'm not, maybe you can ask her to expand on that a little bit. I'm not totally sure about the cocoa bean drink, or do you just mean using cocoa nibs in general? So for me, for what I have used cocoa nibs for, I found that they have been fantastic for relieving anxiety specifically and for calming the system as well. They actually even have a little bit of anti-aging benefits. So I found that they really do boost any herbal tea that I add them to. I hope I answered your question. If not, please ask again and I'll try to answer it better. All right, well, we are down to about, looks like 10 minutes or so. So before we get out, I would love to answer any more questions you've got. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Tamarack Garden and what we do and how we can help your family. So Tamarack Garden was started when I think we've had Tamarack Garden for about the last 2 years. And as I started to have friends and family that would say, man, you're learning all about these herbs. Can you make us something? And I would make a remedy for this or that. I made a remedy for a friend who had shingles. And then I made a remedy for a girlfriend who had really, really dry feet, and made a remedy for, man, what was another one? Another one for acne. One of my sons had just really, really bad acne. And so I made a remedy for that. Another one was dealing with pain, and specifically with some injury pain. So I made a salve for that and realized, wow, these actually work. So turned into a business. It wasn't really meant to be a business, but here it is. So I wanted to talk to you gals about a few of my favorite things that I've made throughout the years and some of the plants that I've used in them, and how they have helped myself and my family. My main one, and most everyone's favorite, is the Ageless Cream. This is a cream that is a tallow base. Tallow is probably a lot of you know, but it is the leaf fat, so the fat around the kidneys of a cow or a grazing animal. And so I render out my own tallow and then add fir needle oil to it. Fir needles, like we talked about earlier, have 10 times more vitamin C than an orange, and that vitamin C has major anti-aging benefits. And so the fir needles and the tallow together are a fantastic anti-aging cream, and even my husband uses it, which is amazing. Another one that is a favorite, specifically of mine, but also a lot of ladies, is our honey hibiscus mask. And it is literally an edible mask. Actually, pretty much everything I make is edible. Some of them have essential oils in them, which aren't always edible, but 99% of the time, everything that I make here, you could totally get it in your mouth, or a kiddo eats it or whatnot. It won't be something scary to have to call 911 or have to go to the hospital and get their tummy pumped, because everything in here is really not going to hurt you. But so the honey hibiscus mask is one of my favorites, and it's made with hibiscus, nature's Botox, and honey, oat flour, some tallow, and a little bit of olive oil. And I use that in the mornings before I hop in the shower. I look a little ridiculous with a bright red face, and then wash it off, and it's fantastic for exfoliating. Whenever you're making a tea, especially for you mamas, throw in some hibiscus. It has so many great benefits for our skin, for our body, for our brain, for our blood flow. There is really nothing that hibiscus doesn't help with, and it's a great one to add to your teas. Another one that my family uses all the time is it's called Mullein Everything. So it's a mullein and comfrey salve, and it quite literally helps with everything. We've used it on injuries, we've used it on cuts. I had a girlfriend that used it on a horrible rash recently that antibiotics weren't helping, and she found a lot of relief. It went away. Another girlfriend used it on her eczema. Another friend used it on her back for some sciatic pain. It's just amazing. I am constantly in awe at what the plants God has given us can do. And so those are a few of the many different products that we make, all using plants that grow right in my yard or nearby. And I love to say this, and I can't say it enough. The plants that we walk on every day are absolutely God's mercy to us. And as you start to learn more about herbs and how to use them for your family and how to use them for specific ailments, you will see that more and more too, that the weeds we walk on every day I always see God's love for us. And then the season when we need them, they're there the most. So it's an incredible thing to me. One other one that I use personally quite often, a lot of other girlfriends do too, and my children use, is our headache salve. And this one is actually made out of pine needles and peppermint. And pine needles, which I cut off some before the class today. Pine needles, we talked about that a little bit. You want to use anything but the yew pine, Y-E-W. But pine needles are a lot similar to fir needles in having a lot of vitamin C and great cold and flu fighting benefits. But pine needles can also help to calm down the capillaries in your head and can help to soothe a headache. And so I infuse these in olive oil and add them to the salve, and we also have it in a stick, so it's a little bit easier to carry around with you and not as goopy. But you could also make a headache tea for yourself and make a pine needle tea to go along with your pine needle salve. And one great rule of thumb with herbs is whenever you're taking something internally, it's great to use it externally too, if you can, or the vice versa. If you're using it externally, if you're putting the pine needle salve on your temples, drink a tea of it as well. And it really does help to get it into your body in different avenues. And I believe there's going to be a drawing at the end. And so I wanted to share with you gals what that is. I have been working on some fun stuff for summertime. And I'm always my own test dummy, and then my kids, and then my family, and then friends. And so everything that we make and that is on the website is all tested, kid tested, and parent approved. Is that a commercial somewhere, I think? So all that to say, the things in for the giveaway are all tested by me and many, many others. And so I will be giving away our summer essentials kit. And so that is our Buzz Off spray, which is a great bug repellent, all made out of weeds and plants that grow locally here. Peppermint, yarrow, catnip, tansy, which is the little button looking flowers, little yellow ones, and then some lavender essential oil and witch hazel. So we have our Buzz Off bug spray, and then our Sunny Day SPF, which is a botanical sunscreen made out of things like dandelion and self-heal, different plants that have an SPF benefit to them, and also non-nano zinc, which is a safer zinc for your body. Your body doesn't absorb it, it sits on top, and it's a safer version for kids and adults alike. There's the Bite Me stick, which is our absolute go-to must-have. We live in mosquito land where we're at, so we're always getting bit by bugs. It's made with plantain, dandelions, and chamomile and beeswax, and a little bit of peppermint essential oil. Plantain is that weed I was talking about earlier. The nickname is snakebite plant, and if you're out and about, you can chew on a leaf, put it on a bug bite, and it will quite literally draw the toxins out of your body and flush them out through your liver. It's an amazing, amazing plant. And then the last one in our summer essentials kit is the Mullein Everything, which I talked about earlier. It can help with sunburns, pain, cuts, scrapes, all the different summertime things. And let's see, if you are interested in any of them, our website is pretty simple. It's tamaracgarden.com. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram. We're Tamarack Garden Family Farm. You can find us there. I'd love to hear from you. And if you have more questions, I'm always more than willing to answer. I try to post a few times a week on different plants that I'm working with or how I'm using them. And I'm always so glad to get questions. So if you want to send me a message in Instant Messenger, wherever, you're welcome to. You're also welcome to email me anytime, and I'm so glad to help, because man, helping empower other mamas to care for their families from their own yard, that's what it's all about. So thank you guys for having me. If you have more questions, we have a couple more minutes and I'd love to answer.
I've got a couple questions for you, Michelle. All right. Does adding milk, honey, or sugar or CBD oil affect the efficacy of the herbs in teas?
Not a bit. Those are all fantastic additions. The milk, the lemon, honey, all of those have their own medicinal benefits in their own way, especially if you're using raw milk. But lemons are one of the most healing fruits on the planet. The way that you can use them to clean your fridge or clean out different things, they also clean the inside of your body. And honey is the ultimate preservative, and it helps preserve outside. It never goes bad, and it does the same on the inside of your body. And then CBD oil, man, that's always a good option as well, because there are so many benefits to all over our body when we add that in.
Perfect. We have another question about the support herbs. She says she's noticed that you've used 2. Can support herbs be used as one herb, or is 2 better?
Absolutely, one herb. You really just want to stick with the odd numbers. So an odd number when it comes to the primary support and catalyst. So if you if I were to use, so probably some of my recipes had four herbs instead of 5, or 4 instead of 3. They still are definitely medicinal, but it is always best to stick with an odd number, just because it surprises your body a little bit. So if some of my recipes only had 4 herbs, I would throw in something like a cinnamon stick, or whatever plant you've got around, or if there's some fir needles growing around, you toss those in. But making it into an odd number is always great. And as far as support herbs go, really any of them, you can add any amount of herbs. There's no real rules. You could add in 3 primary herbs and 1 support and 1 catalyst, or 1 support, 1 catalyst, and 3 support. So however it works for you, and really whatever's growing around you and in your yard, use that.
Perfect. Is it wild rose petals that you use?
It is normally wild rose petals. This year, man, my season was so fast, and I felt like I got wild rose petals and then they were gone the next day. So I actually had to go buy some, which felt terrible. But you can also use domesticated roses. As long as they haven't been sprayed with a whole bunch of pesticides, you're good to go. There is a herbalist a long time ago that made a quote. He said, "A rose is a rose is a rose is a rose." And so roses, domesticated, wild, wherever you get them, as long as you know that they're not toxic, you can absolutely use those rose petals and they will all be beneficial.
Perfect. And then we have one about mullein. Can I harvest big mullein leaves when the plant is almost done for the season?
Oh, great question. So I have a saying, well, it's not my saying, I can't say it's mine, it's from another herbalist. But she says, the medicine follows the plant. So wherever you see the energy at in that plant, that's where the medicine is. So right now, those really, really tall mulleins that are growing the yellow flowers, the medicine is in those yellow flowers, and it's really not in the leaves. So I'm harvesting the yellow flowers right now and not the leaves. But there are some mullein that are on their first year of life. Mullein is a 2-year plant. And so the second year it gets the tall stalk with the flowers. The first year it's just the leaves. If you want to harvest mullein leaves, look for those ones that are just the leaves. And that's where the medicine is at, because all of the energy is going to grow those leaves. It's not going to grow the flowers.
And that's it for questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, gals, thank you so much. This was such an honor to get to teach you gals. I had to pinch myself when I got the email and went, is this for real? Like, this is National Ladies Homestead Gathering. These are amazing people. So I am just so honored to be here, and thank you so much for having me. Please feel free to reach out if you have more questions. I love to help fellow mamas care for their families. So I would be more than honored to help any of you anytime. Shoot me an email or message, however it works. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. So much. This was fabulous. So much information. You did such a fantastic job, and we appreciate all that you shared with us. And I actually have been to Athol, so I know exactly where you are. Yeah, I have been there. So I appreciate that. I don't know about the rest of you, but I have several pages of notes from the presentation tonight. So I really appreciate it. And then, yes, we will get you the information that Michelle gave to us tonight, and Julie will help get all that information out to us. So I just can't thank you enough. It was an excellent presentation. And yes, I will work on the envy I have of your kitchen. So thank you again.
Love it.
Miranda, are we doing another drawing tonight at the end?
We sure are, ladies. We've got Michelle's summer essentials kit that she just went over with us on the video. So we're going to spin for that. This is for all attendees that were here tonight. So good luck to you all. Just so you know, I didn't put my name on there, and now I'm regretting it because that was a really amazing giveaway. So let's see who the lucky winner is. Let's see. It's spinning. I know there's a delay, so hold on. Between my screen and your screen, I know there's a delay. All right, Renee Bernheisel-Clark is our winner tonight. We're going to get your information where it needs to go so that you can get that prize shipped out to you. So thank you so much.
All right, ladies, we appreciate you being here tonight. Michelle, again, thank you so much for all that you did tonight. And yes, go out and pick your yard, ladies. There's a lot out there to help you medicinally. So good night, everybody, and thank you for being here.